An air traffic controller was reportedly allowed to leave their post early just before American Airlines Flight 5342 collided in Midair with a military helicopter over Washington, D.C. Insiders and a preliminary internal FAA report have started to reveal catastrophic failures leading up to the aviation disaster that killed 67 people, including 3 soldiers, Wednesday night. The collision took place as the American Airlines Flight, carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew, made its final approach to Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport shortly before 9 p.m. Eastern Time. That night, an air traffic controller was left to handle both helicopter traffic and manage planes, which should have been a divided duty, according to the New York Times. Those tasks are usually handled between 2 people from 10 a.m. until 9:30 p.m., according to the report. After 9:30 p.m., the duties are typically combined and left to one person as the airport sees less traffic later in the night. A supervisor reportedly decided to combine those duties before the scheduled cutoff time, however, and allowed one air traffic controller to leave work early. The FAA report said that staffing configuration was not normal for the time of day and volume of traffic, that it remains unclear why the supervisor allowed the worker to clock off early on Wednesday night, just before the Midair collision. It has also emerged that the Army helicopter, which was carrying 3 soldiers, involved in the collision might have also deviated from its approved flight path. The outlet again spoke with insiders that said the Sikorsky H-60 Black Hawk helicopter was not on its approved route and flying higher than it should have been. Approval had been given for the helicopter to fly no higher than 200 feet along the east side of the Potomac River, where it would have avoided the passenger jet. The pilot of the helicopter confirmed sight of the American Airlines flight and was told to stick to their predetermined route and go behind the plane. Sources said the pilot did not stick to the path, however, and was a half-mile off course as well as being at an altitude above 300 feet. That a senior Army official told the Times that the pilot of the Black Hawk had flown the route before and was well aware of the tight altitude restrictions and routes. As the jet approached the runway, those on board had asked air traffic control to change their runway, according to an FAA report. The plane, a Bombardier CRJ-700, had been cleared to touch down on runway 1, the main airport thoroughfare, but the controller then asked the pilot to land on runway 33. A source told the Times that such a move is routine, especially with regional jets, and that the decision might have been made to prevent clogging on the main runway. 5 current and former controllers also told the outlet that the lone controller in the tower should have been more proactive in directing the 2 away from each other. The darkness could have played a part in what made it so difficult for both pilots to actually gauge their distance apart, they added. Reagan National has been understaffed for many years, with just 19 fully certified controllers as of September 2023, well below the target of 30, according to the most recent air traffic controller workforce plan submitted to Congress. The situation appeared to have improved since then. As a source told CNN, the Reagan National Control Tower was 85% staffed with 24 of 28 positions filled. Chronic understaffing at air traffic control towers is nothing new, with well-known causes including high turnover and budget cuts. In order to fill the gaps, controllers are frequently asked to work 10-hour days, 6 days a week. The 2 aircraft had collided in a huge fireball that was visible on dash cams of cars driving on highways that snake around the airport before plunging into the river. On Thursday morning, officials confirmed all 67 on both the plane and helicopter had perished, with their rescue mission then becoming a recovery operation. Investigators made a break through later that night, after they had pulled 40 bodies to shore, when they found 2 black boxes from the American Airlines flight. A flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder were pulled from the river by salvage teams. This will be of monumental assistance to authorities as they investigate what exactly happened in the moments leading to disaster. The identities of those who died in the collision have started to trickle out, with DailyMail.com revealing the identities of the pilot and first officer. Among the crash victims were people from Russia, China, Germany, and the Philippines, including young figure skaters. Captain Jonathan Campos, 34, and First Officer Samuel Lilly had been in charge of the flight from Wichita, Kansas, to the capital. Both flight attendants who were on that tragic flight have been revealed as Ian Epstein and Denasia Elder. At least 3 minors, including figure skater Spencer Lane, 16, and Jenna Han, are among the victims who died. Famed Russian skating couple Evgenia Shishkova, 53, and Vadim Naumov, 56, Alongside Lane and Han's mothers also tragically lost their lives in the crash. Chief Warrant Officer 2 Andrew Eves was aboard the Black Hawk helicopter alongside fellow soldier Ryan O'Hara. Eves' devastated wife, Carrie, said, "I am sure by now all of you have heard the news of the tragedy that has occurred in D.C. My husband was one of the pilots in the Black Hawk. We ask that you pray for our family and friends and for all the other families that are suffering today. We ask for peace while we grieve." She has shared several photos of Eves, one of which he was in uniform, and asked her friends to share any pictures they may have of him in his memory. O'Hara, a father of one from Georgia, left behind a wife and a 1-year-old son, and was remembered fondly by his school as a beloved member of the rifle team. His father, Gary, was watching television on the couch at his Midway, Georgia, home on Wednesday when he saw the news on the collision. He told the Washington Post, "I just had a gut feeling when I saw the story breaking. His mother and I and his sister are just absolutely devastated to think we were talking to him just yesterday and we'll never have the opportunity to talk with him again." 2 Chinese nationals were among the victims of the crash, the Chinese embassy in the U.S. said in a statement, without providing further details. In a situation eerily similar to what happened on Wednesday night, a Republic Airways flight had to abort landing at the airport on Tuesday after a helicopter appeared near its flight path. Flight radar data for the flight shows the plane had been traveling from Windsor Locks in Connecticut to the city and had to dramatically gain altitude shortly after descending on Reagan National Airport. It eventually landed safely. President Trump blamed DI hiring practices on the air crash on Thursday as he spoke with reporters. Asked point-blank if he was aware of any performance issues or disciplinary actions with anyone working at DCA's air control tower or the aircraft during the crash, Trump responded, "No." But at another point, asked if race and gender played a role in the tragic accident, Trump said, "It may have, I don't know. Incompetence might have played a role." Trump, 78, was asked if he had any plans to go visit the site, as rescue workers scour the Potomac River for bodies and collect debris at the start of a lengthy investigation about the crash. "I have a plan to visit, not the site. Because what you tell me, what's the site? Water. We're going to go swimming. Instead of visiting the Potomac where only parts of the American Eagle Flight 5342 are visible above about 7 feet of water," Trump said he would be meeting with family members of some victims. "I will be meeting with some people that were very badly hurt, with their family member, obviously, but I'll be meeting with some of the families," he said, Captain Chesley Sully. Sullenberger has also since weighed in on the crash, saying he believes that flying at night over water could have been factors in it. Sully, who famously landed a passenger plane on the Hudson River in 2009, told the New York Times the 2 factors could have made avoiding the chopper harder. He said, "There would have been fewer ground lights visible over the water than over land at night." According to Sully, this might have made it a little bit harder to see. The 74-year-old added, "Nighttime always makes things different about seeing other aircraft. Basically, all you can do is see the lights on them. You have to try to figure out, are they above you or below you? Or how far away? Or which direction are they headed? Everything is harder at night." Sully told the outlet that he hoped the cockpit voice recorder, the in-flight data recorder, and air traffic control data would help clear up what went wrong, that he added, "I'm just devastated by this. We have the obligation to learn from every failure and improve." In a nearly minute-and-a-half recording, ATC operators can be heard asking the helicopter if the commercial flight is in sight. Through muffled audio, more commands and confirmations are made between ATC operators. One air traffic controller said to the helicopter pilot, "PAT 2-5, do you have the CRJ in sight?" Seconds later, the controller spoke again, requesting, "PAT 2-5 pass behind the CRJ." The veteran air traffic controller, who has worked in 6 different airports throughout the country, said that if those commands were the Black Hawk's first reference to the plane, the instructions were unclear. It would have been very ambiguous as far as, "Okay, what plane? Well, where am I looking?" He said, "Whenever you give directions to people, we use the 12 points on a clock. Let's say 12 o'clock is north. If I say, look to your 9 o'clock, that would mean look to your left or to the west. So if I had a helicopter that was coming into my airspace and I wanted him to see an airplane, I would say, PT 2-5 traffic, 9 o'clock, 3 miles regional jet inbound to the airport." He noted that air traffic controllers have a massive responsibility to give accurate and detailed information to pilots.
"We're in this together. We always support each other together. It's part of the fabric of who we are, both at the Skating Club of Boston and in our skating community."
The skaters will come to the ice and skate as part of the healing, because when you skate, it's an expression, and I think that it will help them to be together on the ice.
Agreed.
Yeah, and that's what I was just thinking, this similar, that we all grieve differently, and I just urge them all to be patient with each other, because someone might want to get out there and just practice like it was last week, and someone else might feel like that's not appropriate, but we all grieve differently and at different times and in different ways.
Do you have a plan to go visit the site or meet with any of the
I have a
first
plan
responders?
to visit, not the site, because you tell me what's the site, the water?
Or to meet
Want
with the
me to go
first
swimming?
responders down there?
I don't have a plan to do that, but I will be meeting with some people that were very badly hurt with their family member, obviously, but I'll be meeting with some of the families, yeah.
Today?
So we all saw the same thing. We've seen it many times. I've had the honor of hearing tapes. Tapes are scary, very scary tapes. You had a airliner coming in, American Airlines. He was doing everything right. He was on track. He was the same track as everybody else. They came in. It's probably the same track as they've had for 25 years or more. He's coming in the path. And for some reason, you had a helicopter that was at the same height, obviously when they hit, but pretty much the same height, and going at an angle that was unbelievably bad. When the air traffic controller said, "Do you see?" He was talking about, "Do you see him?" But there was very little time left when that was stated. And then also, he said, "Follow him in." And then almost immediately after that, seconds after that, there was the crash that took place. Well, you follow him in, that means like everything's fine. Follow him in. You had a pilot problem from the standpoint of the helicopter. I mean, because it was visual. It was a very clear night. It was cold but clear, and clear as you could be. The American Airlines plane had lights blazing. They had all of their landing lights on. I could see it from the Kennedy Center tape. We had a tape up on the Kennedy Center. That seems to be the primary. Thus far, I'm sure we'll see other tapes because it's such an area where there are a lot of cameras looking up into the air, into space. So we'll probably see many other shots of it before too much time goes by. But we had a situation where you had a helicopter that had the ability to stop. I have helicopters. You can stop a helicopter very quickly. It had the ability to go up or down. It had the ability to turn. And the turn it made was not the correct turn, obviously. It did somewhat the opposite of what it was told. We don't know that would have been the difference because the timing was so tight. It was so little. There was so little time to think. But what you did have is you had vision. The helicopter had vision of the plane because you had vision of it all the way, perfect vision of it all the way from at Kennedy Center where the tape was taken. And for some reason, there weren't adjustments made. Again, you could have slowed down the helicopter substantially. You could have stopped the helicopter. You could have gone up. You could have gone down. You could have gone straight up, straight down. You could have turned. You could have done a million different maneuvers. For some reason, it just kept going and then made a slight turn at the very end, and by that time it was too late. They shouldn't have been at the same height, because if it was at the same height, you could have gone under it or over it, and nobody realized, or they didn't say that it's at the same height. At the same height, still wouldn't have been great, but you would have missed it by quite a bit. Could have been 1,000 feet higher. It could have been 200 feet lower. But it was exactly at the same height, and somebody should have been able to point that out. So all of this is going to be studied, but it just seems to me, from a couple of words that I like to use, the words common sense, some really bad things happened, and some things happened that shouldn't have happened. So you had a helicopter going in an identical direction. You had a helicopter that was at the exact same height as somebody going in essentially the opposite direction. You had a plane that was following a track, which is a track that every other plane followed. And I don't imagine, I know I've heard today that they might have been following the preceding plane, which was pretty close, but not that close, the preceding plane. But you wouldn't have even been able to see that because of the direction that the helicopter was coming in at. So you had a confluence of bad decisions that were made. And you have people that lost their lives, violently lost their lives.
Cat 25, get the third game fight. Cat 25, that's on your third game. Good to American 472 by that proper individual. American 472, watch star, 1 star, 3 seater, 17. You see that? 473. American 2130, go around to left hand, 350, financing 3000. Left hand 350, 3000, American 3130. Tower Blue Street 5347 is on final request, runway 33, circle to 33. Make it ready, correct. 31 Xfinity. 3130, go around to left hand, 230, financing 3000. That's zero heading 3000, 3130. American 472, Council Land Clearance, runway 1 continue.